Late last year, the word metaverse exploded into the investment vernacular when the CEO of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, talked about it as the next stage for the internet and the next stage for his company. And at that time announced that the company Facebook would change its name to Meta. So what is the metaverse? Well, the first problem is, of course, it means different things to different people. For some, it's the digitalization of everything. Or for others, a new platform for the digital age. Of course, it has the potential to disrupt everything, if you're a maximalist, or for the Spartans, it could just simply be the next chapter for the internet. One of my favourite definitions for the metaverse was from Matthew Ball, a VC blogger and go-to person for all things metaverse, when he described it really as a successor state to the mobile internet. Now, the timeline for the metaverse didn't begin in November last year, but rather in the early 90s in a book called Snow Crash, where the term metaverse was used to describe actually a dystopic virtual alternative to the real world. And since then, we've seen various other building blocks come together that have helped us get to where we are today. Those have included things like Second Life, which is a very early virtual world that's still in existence today, but also blockchain and Bitcoin, we've NFTs, and also the Ethereum blockchain, upon which many of the P2P and other distributed platforms that we're excited about, or will be, are built upon. In 2012, a key moment in the evolution of the metaverse was the Kickstarter campaign for Oculus, which was the first VR headset company that not long after was acquired by Facebook and is today a critical component of Facebook's vision of the metaverse. Since then, we've seen the advent of areas like Decentraland, Virtual Land. We've seen augmented reality really happen on the smartphone in the form of Pokemon Go and other games that use the smartphone to create this augmented reality around regular real-world things. We've also seen the rise of mass-scale gaming, first in the form of PUBG in 2017, but subsequently also in Fortnite and Apex Legends, that have really taken gaming to a scale unimaginable before. And then, of course, the pandemic. And during that period, of course, we've seen multiple applications reach sizes and scales that really had been unthinkable before then. And you'll have your own examples, of course, but we watched our children play games with their friends. We saw homeschooling happen. We've seen Teams and Zoom enjoy audiences of more than 100 million people on their platforms. Again, in a scale that will, we believe, look like the metaverse in the future, but was unimaginable before. And of course, that brings us up to speed with the decision by Facebook to rename themselves Meta late last year. Mark Zuckerberg's vision of the metaverse is very VR-centric, and as you'd imagine, being the owner of Oculus and having a very early lead in terms of market share in a nascent virtual reality market. But the excitement about the metaverse goes well beyond the 30-odd billion market for VR and AR headsets that people expect in the future. Really, the prize is much bigger than that. And it goes, again, beyond just what people spend today on things like virtual goods and skins, $54 billion in 2019. But I believe the true focus for the metaverse and the investments being made there is the disruption of profit pools associated with the mobile internet. And one of the most high-profile profit pools is, of course, the app stores that last year captured $170 billion in revenue terms. Now, if the metaverse can reinvent everything, and if it delivers on the promise of being a true successor state to the internet, then of course what we're really talking about is the disruption of trillions of dollars of market capitalization associated with companies that today dominate the mobile internet. Which is why, of course, so many companies, both within tech and beyond it, are very keen to stake an early claim in this new digital frontier. We've seen Microsoft justify its proposed acquisition of Activision as a way to increase its presence in the metaverse. We've seen chipmaker Nvidia talk about its own Omniverse, a software platform that will help enable what it believes to be the metaverse. And in the real world, companies like McDonald's and Disney and Nike, very quick to stake their own claims in this nascent environment. We've also seen excitement associated with the metaverse spill into areas like NFTs, non-fungible tokens that some people believe will be tied up in the fabric of the metaverse. And that excitement was epitomized last year following the record sale of an NFT piece of art by artist Beeple for $69 million, which incidentally made him the third most valuable living artist ever. The excitement around NFTs, at least for some people, revolves around the role that the technology may play in the metaverse, with some high-profile investors believing that we're going to enter a new form of computing architectures around this idea of distributed computing, or Web3. Now, that's not clear, and it remains highly controversial, as does the whole concept of the metaverse. And in fact, for every person who's excited about the timeline for the metaverse, there are others that are skeptical about it too. Elon Musk, CEO and founder of Tesla, has referred to the metaverse as a bit buzzwordy. And others like Jack Dorsey, founder of Twitter, have also been somewhat sceptical about Web3 and the future of distributed computing. Much of the skepticism around the metaverse relates to the form it might take, the timeline, of course, for adoption, and, coming out of a pandemic, whether or not the human race really needs a virtual alternative to the real world that we're all so keen to return to. So what do we think? Well, we acknowledge it's still very early for the metaverse, perhaps even earlier than it was for the internet before the World Wide Web. But that being said, we are still beginning to see a framework emerge for understanding what the metaverse might look like in the future. One of the key areas will be 3D interfaces. For the metaverse to be truly immersive, it will require headsets in virtual and augmented reality to deliver on that promise. And we believe that that hardware represents a key theatre for the battleground for the metaverse. While a fully immersive experience may still be some years away, we're encouraged by some of the progress we've already seen on the smartphone, and particularly in areas like augmented reality, which is this idea of melding real and digital worlds. And we've seen it in the social media domain too, in the form of hundreds of millions of Snap users using augmented reality lenses every day. While the timeline to fully immersive interfaces remains unknown, we can be more certain about the need to invest heavily in infrastructure necessary to support the metaverse. While we cannot know the exact form the metaverse will yet take, we know that in order to support very large, virtual and persistent systems will require an incredible amount of compute power. And as investors, we're excited about that opportunity because it means more storage in order to support these applications. It requires more bandwidth if we're going to be able to have very low latency of hundreds of millions of concurrent users. It's almost certainly going to require a lot more investment in AI. People coming together from all parts of the world, it's speaking in different languages will require things like real-time translation, and that's music to our ears as investors in AI. And of course, all of this requires a scale of compute that we really can't deliver anywhere other than the cloud. If you think about the ability to support 300 million plus Fortnite users, that could only be done by the likes of Amazon Web Services today, one of the biggest public cloud computing companies. So as technology investors, we remain very focused on the infrastructure opportunities that we believe will unfold as the metaverse itself takes shape. In the meantime, we believe gaming represents one of the most exciting applications that have metaversal tendencies. We know that because today, hundreds of millions of people play games across Activision's platforms. Likewise, more than 40 million people use Roblox, a developmental platform where users create games of their own every day. We're also excited about companies like Unity that help companies create content today for 3D applications, but hopefully in the future also for the metaverse. So in summary, we believe the metaverse represents one of, if not the most exciting emerging technology trends that we see today. But we caution it's still very early. And in many ways, it feels like the internet did before the mid-1990s. So there's time for us as investors to take a watching brief. But in the meantime, we can still be excited about the infrastructure and AI and gaming implications of the investments that are pouring into the metaverse today by the likes of Facebook and others. While we understand some people's skepticism about the metaverse and its timeline for adoption, we are excited about it, principally because the pandemic has taught us that we as a species can be apart and together at the same time. And so we're hopeful that in time, the metaverse will be able to deliver on its long-term promise as a successor state to the internet.